In this episode, we talk about the Indian Railways Amrit Bharat station scheme aimed at modernizing railway connectivity. We also talk about the fallout of a container vessel capsizing off the Kerala coast. But first, we talk about the encounter of a prominent Maoist leader in Chhattisgarh last week. Hi, I'm Ichha Sharma, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. The government's fight against Maoists reached a crucial point last week when, in one of the most successful security operations in decades, security forces claimed to have killed CPI Maoist General Secretary Nambala Keshava Rao alias Basavaraju along with 27 other Naxal cadres in an encounter in Chhattisgarh. This recent operation has led some to believe that the government may be on track to meet the deadline set by Union Home Minister Amrit Shah to end the Maoist insurgency by March next year. In this segment, my colleague Niharika Nanda speaks with the Indian Express's Deeptiman Tiwary to learn more about the recent encounter and the Maoist leader Basavaraju.
Deeptiman, could you tell us about this recent major operation against the Maoists in Chhattisgarh and what makes it so significant?
Yes, so as we all know that in the past few months, security forces have been pushing deep into the jungles in Chhattisgarh and have been conducting, intelligence-based operations, giving some serious setbacks to the CPI Maoist organization. Several of their leaders in the past few months have been killed and hundreds of their cadres have been killed. So it is in this series that this operation on Wednesday was also conducted in the Bastar region of Chhattisgarh. And one of the major successes of this operation was that the General Secretary of the CPI Maoist, that is Nambala Keshava Rao, also known as Gangana or Basavaraju, he was among the 27 Maoist cadres who were killed in that operation. So this is a big setback to the CPI Maoists because their chief has been killed in the operation. This is perhaps the first time that in 3 decades such a top leader of the Maoist has been killed. And so it is a very significant development.
And so talk about who Basavaraju was and what do we know about how he got involved in this movement?
Yeah, so Basavaraju, he joined the Maoist movement in the 80s. He comes from a very humble background, from a simple family in a place called Gianapeta in Srikakulam in United Andhra Pradesh. And he is an engineer by education and he became a student leader while he was in the regional engineering college. And, from there he got influenced by the left movement in Warangal when he was studying. He was doing his B.Tech there. And from there he got attracted towards the leftist ideology. And later he went on to join the CPI Maoists. In fact, before he joined, he was a student union president. He had also represented Andhra Pradesh at the national level in volleyball. So he was quite a bright fellow during his student days, but got impacted by the leftist ideology, which was, quite common in campuses at that time, especially in United Andhra Pradesh, and then went on to join the CPI Maoist.
And during his college leadership days, you write that he was also arrested once?
Yes, this was, when he was following the leftist student politics, he got into scuffle with some ABVP members, and it's quite something that, ABVP's parent organization and its political wing is now in the government, and that government's forces have now killed Basavaraju.
And we understand that Basavaraju actually followed in the footsteps of Ganapati, who previously held this same position, right?
Yes, so Basavaraju was the chief of the Central Military Commission of a CPI Maoist. So basically he was responsible for conducting operations, military operations. And he had been groomed by Ganapati, who saw him as a future leader. And in 2017, when Ganapati had passed the age of 70 and, had health issues, he passed on the baton to Basavaraju, who had been known to be a very capable military leader as well as ideologically committed, had given 40 years to the organization, rising through the ranks, joined it as a young man and then went on to become a top leader from what we know from intelligence agencies is that, he has lived most of his time in what we call as the Abujmar, which is really deep in the jungles of Chhattisgarh and is kind of an unsurveyed area. And is said to be a tall figure at 6 feet and, used to handle an AK-47 all the time with him. And because Ganpati had ideologically groomed Basavaraju into all this, so with minor differences, of how they approached certain issues and how they saw the future of the movement, they pretty much handled their roles pretty effectively, yes.
And Deeptiman, what do we know about Basavaraju's leadership style? What kind of a leader did he prove to be, and how was his tenure different from that of Ganapati's?
So, as I told you that he was chief of the Central Military Commission of the CPI Maoist, and so he was responsible for leading the People's Liberation Guerrilla Army, which is the military of the CPI Maoist. And during his tenure, some of the most brutal attacks on security forces have been conducted. Hundreds of security forces have been killed in some of the most spectacular attacks, beginning from the 2010 Chiltanar massacre and, 2013 Ladehar ambush in Jharkhand. And he is said to be a leader who, unlike Ganpati, is more suited to a violent struggle. And so under his leadership, it was expected that there would be more attacks on security forces. And he's somebody who was said to be also someone who could tolerate some collateral damage in terms of civilian lives if it meant a big success against security forces. So that way, he was more sort of an operations-driven guy, whereas Ganpati, more sort of an ideological figurehead, because Ganpati, let's remember, had never served in a Dalam, which is the military unit of the CPI Maoist. He was a political brain of the CPI Maoist. So he was more interested in spreading the influence of the ideology and expanding the organization both in rural and urban parts of the country. He was somebody who could, forge, alliances, like he spearheaded the Union of the People's War and the Marxist Communist Center in 2005 when the CPI Maoist was born. So he was sort of a political brain, while Basavaraju, despite being, ideologically groomed, but because he had risen through the Dalam structure, was also known as somebody who was very deft at operations.
And when it comes to the Maoist movement, which has been active for decades in the Chhattisgarh region, what role did Basavaraju play in it?
So, his tenure would be characterized by some very, very daring attacks in which, scores and hundreds of security forces were killed. Beginning from 2018 Sukma ID attacks to Gadchiroli landmine blast in 2019 to 2021 Sukma Bijapur ambush in which 22 security personnel were killed. Dantewada ID attack in 2023. And even when, security forces were making serious advances deep into, Maoist core areas, under him, there was this Bijapur ID attack in 2025, in which 8 DRG personnel were killed. So, yes, he has made some daring attacks in the face of adversity, but still the fact remains that under him, the Maoist movement has declined, and security forces in the past couple of years have been able to kill hundreds of Maoists, gone deep into Maoist core areas, and now claim that they will be able to meet the March 2026 deadline of finishing Maoist insurgency, as said by the Union Home Minister Amit Shah.
And Deeptiman, you mentioned that during his tenure, the Maoist movement also saw a decline. Was there any particular reason behind that?
So Basavaraju's tenure as General Secretary could be seen as both characterized by some daring attacks against security forces, but at the same time, some major reverses that the movement has faced. And his leadership would actually be remembered in history for the movement's decline, although it may not be attributed to his leadership per se, because the movement itself has been in decline for quite some time, even under Ganpati, because the ideology is no more attractive to the youngsters. It does not attract any talent or brains from the universities as it used to do earlier. The nature of universities, campuses, and the educated youth has changed. It has become aspirational. It is looking at reaping the benefits of a growing economy rather than, focusing on socio-economic inequities in the society around it. So the ground from where the recruitment used to happen has shrunk, and that is why CPI Maoist has been facing a leadership crisis for for around 2 decades now. And now it has begun to struggle to even get, local cadres.
And now, moving on from the clampdown in Bastar, we turn to the government's efforts to improve the country's railway infrastructure. Back in 2022, aiming to enhance station facilities, boost urban connectivity, and integrate railways with other modes of transport, the Indian Railways had launched the Amrit Bharat Station Scheme. The goal was to modernize the railway network and improve the travel experience for millions of passengers across the country. But to specifically upgrade long-distance travel for lower-income groups, the railways also introduced the Amrit Bharat Express under the scheme.
So Amrit Bharat Train Initiative it's a Ministry of Railways kind of umbrella scheme under which they are modernizing the railway stations as well as the trains.
This is the Indian Express's Dheeraj Mishra, who reports on the railways for the paper.
So this particular train, which is called Amrit Bharat Train, it is for the sleeper class and general class passengers, because lately you would be hearing about, there was a lot of discussion ongoing even in the parliament, even on the outside of the parliament, that government is only focusing on the premium trains, government is only focusing on the AC class travel, and a lot of expenditure, a lot of budget is going only in these directions. While the larger number of passengers that constitute the total passenger travel of the Indian Railways are general class and sleeper class passengers.
In fact, according to the data from the Ministry of Railways, 32% of all train passengers last year travelled in general class compartments alone. Now, earlier 2 pilot versions of the Amrit Bharat Express were launched, but earlier this month, its version 2.0 also became operational. This train was specifically designed for migrant corridors and high traffic routes, and it runs from Saharsa in Bihar to Lokmanya Tilak in Mumbai. Dheeraj tells us that this train, which is one in a series of 50 affordable express trains, aims to redefine travel conditions in general and sleeper class coaches.
It's a 22 coach train. Out of 22 coaches, 11 coaches are for only general class passengers. 8 coaches are for sleeper class passenger, and there are 2-3 more coaches which is for different purposes. So the train is mostly for lower income passengers, or we can say kind of lower middle class passengers who travels in the sleeper class and general class. In a regular express trains, which we call long route trains, or in a regular superfast trains, the number of general class coaches are very, very limited. It ranges from maximum 4 to 2 coaches in a train.
And that's why a train where nearly 50% of the coaches are reserved for general class passengers is a big deal. Now, this particular service covers a nearly 2,000-kilometer route across 4 states, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, in just under 36 hours. It's designed to ease the burden on overcrowded general coaches, where 100-seat compartments often end up carrying more than 300 passengers.
When you travel in an AC coach, even in AC 3 tier, AC 2 tier, AC first class, it can be a kind of leisure activity for people traveling in these AC classes. You can get inside the train, have a comfortable traveling. You will have a reserved seat, you will get food and everything. But for a general class passengers traveling, it's a very challenging task. So the whole 24 hour, 36 hour, 48 hour, whatever time it takes, a person is in the constant struggle to have a seat, because the whole coach is flooded by so many people. Struggle starts from getting inside a train, because once you buy a reserve class ticket for sleeper, AC and everywhere, that means your berth is fixed. It is reserved. You can go inside the train, you can sit on your reserved seat. But once you book a ticket of general class, it only give you a ticket to get inside the train. It does not give you any reservation that, see, this particular seat is booked for you.
And this is exactly what the Amrit Bharat Express aims to change. So to experience it firsthand, Dheeraj travelled the entire route from Saharsa to Lokmanya Tilak, which cost him 450 rupees. And in this segment, he joins us to share what he found. Dheeraj, having travelled the journey in the train, you write that, some passengers were stunned and a few were even surprised to find water available in the toilets. So, can you talk about how significant this shift is for the low-cost travellers?
So this Amrit Bharat train, it's kind of very good initiative because, like I said, there are 11 coaches. So number of coaches are more compared to other trains. Then they have provided very good facilities. Like, there are number of charging points. The toilets are clean. I mean, as of now, because the train is new. So, I mean, obviously the toilets and everything, this appears to be very clean as of now. But, the real test of the train will be, after, let's say 6-7 months or maybe 1 year down the line. How does it look after 1 year? But initially it looks good and passengers were also very happy. They were comfortable. And one of the very important relief for the general class passengers that features in the Amrit Bharat train is because the upper berth of most of the general coaches were placed in such a way that if a person sits on the upper berth, he or she has to travel throughout the journey just keeping their head bent. And there are some good, additional feature in the coaches, like there is an emergency talkback system. If something happens, you can just press the button and you can directly talk to the loco pilot. The message will be sent to the loco pilot and then loco pilot will, alert the concerned person and they will come for the help. So these are some of the good new features that are there in Amrit Bharat train. But like I said, because the train is new, so it looks good, but then the real test of the train will be, maybe 6 months or 1 year later.
Right. And Dheeraj, you also note some incidents of misuse in the train. So are there any systems in place to ensure these trains can sustain their quality over time?
Yeah, so during my visit, from Saharsa to Mumbai, there were some instances. There was a, complaint of missing a tab from one of the general coaches, and the concerned staff, they came and they fixed it. They installed a new tap and everything. So yeah, there are places because, in a train, the RPF is a concerned person, Railway Protection Force. So if something like this happens, because it is a theft. So if something like this happens, one has to alert, one has to complain it to the RPF. So there should be some RPF personnel in the train. I did not find that many RPF personnel during my visit. I don't know if additional personnel have been deployed, but there is already a provision and there are already, when you take a train, you will find there are RPF personnel in the train. There is one more good thing, that CCTV cameras are installed in every coaches. And I think on the either side of the coach, CCTV cameras are there. So everything is being recorded. So, there have been a very serious concerns of passenger safety while traveling in the general class. And I have been the witness of some of the instances. Sometimes some antisocial elements, they get inside the train, they tries to fight with the passengers, they threaten them because, people traveling in the general coaches, they are mostly migrants, daily wage laborers, they are workers. And they are kind of very scared of people, scared of, officials, scared of TT and everything. So I think the cases of theft, maybe fighting or any other thing, I think these things can be solved through these CCTV cameras.
And lastly, Dheeraj, during your journey, you also spoke to a number of passengers. So can you tell us what did they have to say? And do they trust that the railways will maintain these standards?
Yeah. So passengers were, obviously very surprised that, these kind of facilities can be in a general coach. Number one. Number two, they were also very happy because, in the toilet of the general coaches, there was proper running water in the toilet. And also there was a hand wash in the toilet. You would have seen a lot of pictures. especially during the festival and everything, people had to sit inside the toilets to travel from one place to another, especially from Mumbai, from Delhi to UP to different parts of Bihar and all these places. And for us, it seems very surprising that, how a person can travel in such a condition. But see, they do not have any option. They have to go to their native place. And if Indian Railways cannot ensure them a dignified travel, if they cannot ensure a better travel to these general class passengers, they are bound, they are kind of very helpless to sit inside the toilet. So they were happy, they were surprised, but they were not very sure that this condition will remain for a very long time. Because, they were saying, once the people will know about the train, more and more people will take that Amrit Bharat train. So then the real challenge will come up, that how will railways ensure the cleanliness, the maintenance, that everything will be proper in place despite having high number of passengers. So that will be the challenge. I mean, the passengers were, like I said, they were saying that, they are not very sure that, if there will be more number of passengers, will there be the same facilities? Will there be the same comfort? Will there be the same, security like they experienced while traveling?
And in the end, we talk about the fallout of a container vessel capsizing off the Kerala coast. A container ship sailing under the Liberian flag capsized off the coast of Kerala yesterday. All crew members were safely rescued after the vessel MSC Elsa 3 began tilting on Saturday near Kochi and later sank around 14.6 nautical miles off the Alappuzha coast. As reported by the Indian Express's Saju Philip, officials stated that around 100 containers are believed to have fallen into the sea. 13 of the containers were reported to contain hazardous cargo and 12 had calcium carbide. The ship also had over 450 metric tons of marine fuel on board, including diesel and furnace oil. A high-level meeting chaired by Kerala Chief Secretary Dr. A. Jayathilak confirmed that containers may drift towards coastal areas including Alappuzha, Kollam, Ernakulam and Thiruvananthapuram. Fishing has been temporarily banned within a 20 nautical mile radius of the sunken vessel. An official communication from the Kerala Chief Minister's office after the meeting stated, quote, as the oil slick can reach anywhere along the Kerala coast, an alert has been sounded across the coastal belt. The containers are drifting in the sea at a speed of 3 kilometers per hour. Besides, the oil in the fallen containers and the marine fuel used in the ship has also leaked. At present, the Coast Guard has deployed 2 ships and a Dornier aircraft to mitigate oil spilling, unquote. Shaju further reports that the Director General of the Coast Guard, who also chairs the National Oil Spill Response Plan, is overseeing the mitigation efforts. Residents and fishermen have been advised not to approach any containers that may wash ashore or to maintain a minimum distance of 200 meters. Rapid response teams have been mobilized across Kerala's coastal districts, and containment resources such as oil booms and skimmers are being readied. Shaju also highlights that the district officials, the Navy and other maritime agencies are coordinating the containment strategy to manage both drifting containers and the oil spill risk. You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by Niharika Nanda and me, Ichha Sharma. If you like the show, do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend it to someone you think may like it, with a friend or in your family. This is the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio or write to us at podcast@indianexpress.com.